Good afternoon. I'm Rabbi Sharon from Ikar in Los Angeles, and I stand here today representing millions of Jewish people around the country, some here in this place and many in state capitals across the country, from Ben the Ark, Tru'ah, the RAC, and so many other organizations who want to be a part of bending the arc of the moral universe toward justice. The oldest and the boldest formula for economic justice comes straight out of the Hebrew Bible. In the 50th year, the Jubilee year, the great shofar is sounded and two things happen. All of the slaves are freed and all property reverts back to its original owners. This is a holy reset button that is pressed. It is a sweeping and a revolutionary act of economic redress that is rooted in the assumption that in a just society there can be no permanent class of poor, that the destitute, the exploited, the downtrodden deserve a fair shot and they deserve their fair share. And most astonishingly, overturning those economic systems benefits not only the enslaved and the poor, it actually saves the society from breaking proclaimed liberty throughout the land for all of its inhabitants. The liberation of the poor is a prerequisite to the liberation of all people. So I don't care what zip code you live in, how many graduate degrees you have, and how big your pension is. Because you must decide that you stand on the side of one who needs to choose between prescription drugs and groceries for her family. You must stand on the side of history with one who worries if the water that she serves her children is tainted with lead. It is inconceivable that I could live freely while my neighbor's in perpetual anxiety that she or her loved ones will be one of the thousands who will die this year from poverty. Our sacred texts are desperate for us to learn the secret of human existence, that we are all bound up in one another. Solidarity is not a choice that you can opt into or opt out of. Our shared humanity is what links our destinies one to the other. My liberation is contingent on yours, and yours is contingent on mine. This movement is rooted in the understanding of interlocking injustices and insists that we cannot fight systemic poverty while ignoring white supremacy and patriarchy. We cannot fight racism without fighting anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia. This movement is dedicated to lifting up the widow and the orphan and the stranger and depends on all of us and will free all of us. We're here today because our lives depend on it, because our nation is driven by fear, and it's mired in a failed moral narrative. It is contaminated by corruption, hypocrisy, and indecency. Our nation is the richest in the world, and yet 140 million people are poor. We know this disproportionately affects women, children, and people with disabilities. We will no longer abide a politics that invisibilizes and marginalizes and steals from those who need the most. We will no longer abide a politics of hatred, intolerance, and heartlessness that is literally poisoning the water systems of our nation. In a time of moral crisis, we need to live even more deeply and more proudly from our core convictions. And right now, there is a moral wave that is rolling across this nation. This is a wave that is fueled by the stubborn and persistent hope and infused always with love. This wave is redefining what it means to be a patriot. And it is redefining what it means to be a person of faith. Let me tell you, if you don't like what people of your faith are saying on the public stage, each of us must step forward and say, this is what a Jew looks like. This is what a Christian looks like. This is what a Muslim looks like. So today, 50 years after the assassination of Dr. King, we declare a jubilee. We lift our voices for justice. We put our bodies on the line for mercy. And together we will proclaim liberty throughout the land for the enslaved, for the poor, and for us all. Yeah!